Canelo Alvarez is clearly one of the most talented and accomplished boxers in the 21st century. The 35-year-old Mexican is a four-division world champion, and he has been competing at the championship level for more than 14 years, which is extraordinary. Canelo has won titles at junior middleweight, middleweight, light heavyweight, and super middleweight. Looking back at his long and illustrious career, 168 is the one division where Canelo has truly excelled. It's the one and only weight class where he has proven his dominance beyond reproach. And it's the one and only weight class where he is truly proven to be among the very best of the best in the history of the division. After Canelo scored an absolutely spectacular knockout against Sergey Kovalev at light heavyweight back in November 2019, he then shifted his attention one division south at 168, with the goal of becoming the first undisputed world super middleweight champion in history. He had already competed there previously, winning the minor WBA regular belt against Rocky Fielding, but by the time he beat Kovalev to win a major world title at 175, he had never competed for one of the major titles at 168. His first opportunity to do so happened in December 2020 when he faced the undefeated Super WBA champion Callum Smith. Canelo dominated the action and did so in style, ultimately winning the fight by a lopsided 12-round unanimous decision. In addition to winning the WBA belt, Canelo also won the vacant WBC belt, and this wound up being the beginning of an incredible journey. Canelo defended those titles a couple of months later, and then in May 21 he had a unification bout against Billy Joe Saunders, who was the undefeated WBO champion at that time. Saunders was a guy that many believed would pose a difficult challenge for Canelo, but Canelo broke down the slick southpaw in impressive fashion, fracturing his eye socket with a menacing uppercut in round 8. The fight was stopped after the conclusion of that round, and Canelo was 3/4 of the way there to accomplishing his goal. He would fulfill that goal in November 21 when he stopped undefeated IBF champion Caleb Plant in round 11. So in a span of less than 11 months, Canelo beat 3 talented, undefeated champions to become the first undisputed super middleweight champion in the entire history of the division. In an historical context, 168 is a relatively newer division, just over 40 years old, but this was still a tremendous accomplishment. There have been an awful lot of great boxers who have competed at 168, and none of them did what Canelo accomplished. The fact that Canelo successfully accomplished his goal, and did so in a span of less than 11 months, is truly incredible, especially in a day and age where most elite boxers only fight once or twice a year. Canelo has since made another half a dozen defenses of his super middleweight championship, which most notably included the victory in his third fight against Gennady Golovkin. Canelo was stripped by the IBF prior to his fight against Edgar Berlanga, so technically he was no longer undisputed for that championship defense. But in his most recent fight back in May, Canelo squared off against the new IBF champion William Skull, and Canelo won by a 12-round unanimous decision in that one to regain the IBF belt that rightfully belonged to him to begin with. Officially, this made Canelo a 2-time undisputed champion at 168, but that's really just a technicality. It's exactly the same type of situation we recently saw with the heavyweight king Alexander Usyk, where he had vacated the IBF belt and then won it back against Daniel Dubois. So technically they are both 2-time undisputed at heavyweight and super middleweight respectively, but neither undisputed champion actually lost that IBF belt in the ring. In the midst of his super middleweight reign, Canelo moved up to challenge WBA light heavyweight champion Dimitri Bivol. That was back in May 22, Canelo's first fight after he had beaten Plant to become undisputed, and it was just Canelo's second fight at 175. Bivol beat Canelo and did so decisively, proving too quick, too smooth, too clever, and too active for Canelo. The biggest knock on Canelo in recent years is that after that loss, he hasn't truly challenged himself the way he did during that incredible run where he became undisputed. The belief among many being that Canelo is no longer hungry, and that he has carefully and strategically managed his career since suffering the loss against Bivol. The fact remains, aside from the trilogy fight against Triple G, Canelo has seemingly been playing it a little safe with his opponent's selection. And even with that third Golovkin fight, that was the first time Gennady had ever competed north of middleweight. The other guys he faced weren't exactly opponents that were getting fans too excited. And perhaps more concerning still, Canelo has not scored a knockout victory since the loss to Bivol. His last 6 victories have all been 12-round unanimous decision victories. Although in fairness, he has dropped most of those guys he fought along the way during that 6-fight stretch. In total, Canelo has made 9 defenses since winning the WBA belt against Callum Smith. And Canelo will be looking to make that an even 10 defenses when he faces Terence "Bud" Crawford. That fight is scheduled to take place in Las Vegas on September 13th. And that one will be streamed on Netflix. It's a very interesting matchup at this stage. Like Canelo, Crawford is a 4-division world champion. Crawford won titles at lightweight, junior welter, and welterweight, where he was undisputed at 140 and 147. And in his most recent fight, Crawford won a 12-round unanimous decision against Israil Madrimov. That was Crawford's first fight north of welterweight, and he won the Super WBA title at 154, which made him a 4-division champion. The interesting thing about this is that Crawford just won a title at 154, his 4th division where he won a championship, whereas 154 was the first of 4 divisions where Canelo won a championship. Crawford has never fought at 160, let alone 168, whereas Canelo had his last fight below 168 all the way back in May 2019 when he beat Daniel Jacobs. Based on that, one would think that Canelo has a huge size advantage going into this one. But in terms of height, they really aren't that far off. Of course, Canelo is more accustomed to hitting and being hit by boxers who are bigger and heavier than Crawford and anyone Crawford has ever faced. There are a lot of interesting dynamics at play here. The fact that Canelo's last 6 performances are widely viewed as being uninspired, where many believe he has just been going through the motions. In the minds of many, that offsets any perceived size disadvantage that Bud has going into this one. Add in the fact that Crawford is easily the most accomplished American boxer competing in the world today, in a day and age where American talent is largely lacking on the big stage. That in itself should be something that has Canelo more motivated than we've seen him since he suffered the loss against Bivol. The fact that this fight will potentially be available to a wider audience on Netflix, featuring the most accomplished American boxer in the world today going up against the most accomplished Mexican boxer in the world today, 2 elite pound-for-pound boxers, 2 of the very best out there in all of boxing. This provides a mighty big stage opportunity for both prize fighters. For Crawford, a victory over Canelo would be truly epic. It would mark him as a 5-division champion, and more impressively, it would give him the unique distinction of becoming the only man in history to become a 3-division undisputed world champion in the modern 4-belt era. That would be incredible considering he's only had 1 fight at 154, and he's never even fought at 160 or 168. For Canelo, a victory would give him 10 total defenses at 168, and it would be a high-profile victory on the big stage, under the big spotlight, with millions of eyes watching. It would likewise help amplify his already impressive super-middleweight legacy, where he is already arguably the most accomplished boxer in the history of the division. This is Canelo's biggest mega fight in a very long time, and as such it represents a tremendous opportunity. This is a really interesting and intriguing matchup right now, and I sure am fired up to watch. Alvarez versus Crawford, September 13th. Who do you think will win? Please share your thoughts in the comments section. Thank you very much for watching, everyone, and have a wonderful night. This is Rummy on the Ring from Rummy's Corner.